Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. A bit of a weird setup today. I'm streaming from another PC in the cloud, so let me know how it
we
sounds.
can talk about that too at the beginning. So
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's called Shadow.tech. Yeah, we'll talk about it on the podcast
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah.
because it means I can now do other things on my computer without my laptop screaming at me. Means I can use Volterra full time, just stream from the. That's actually a good point. This basically makes ARM viable in the Windows
by
space,
not using it.
Yeah.
Genius. Let me close that. Where's my phone offline? My phone's not offline.
We'll start with that because it's about the podcast.
Yeah.
Sounds a bit like a robot, but that's not a good start. Yes, you're right. I can hear that too. Why is that? I don't know what that would even be. Test.
I mean, it sounds fine to me, but. Are you set? You're muted or something.
1 second, sorry. Let's fix this. Mute that. Okay. How does that sound? This.
People are saying better now.
Are they?
Well, someone did.
No, they can't hear. Okay, wait. If I do this.
Yeah, they're saying better. They're saying Zach, you sound better.
Okay, so that should be fine now. Let me know. In theory, that should work. Okay, good. Yeah, that works now.
All right. I guess we should start recording. I am now recording.
I'm now recording as well.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 290 for November 4th, 2022. Hey everyone, Daniel Rubino here, joined by Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. We have, well, a smaller, different week. Actually, well, we can't really talk about it, but we had a wild week at the site, which is actually all good news, but we'll talk about that some other time. But this week we'll be talking about Zach has been using the ARM device from Microsoft, Volterra. So he's going to talk a little bit about his experience there and how he's actually using it on the podcast, which is kind of interesting. Controversy over Satya Nadella's pay, apparently, as this always happens when CEOs of large companies make a ton of money. Talk a little bit about my Surface Pro 9 review, which is still in the works. I got distracted this week with site stuff. Now, my opinion of it is changing for the positive, but I'll, put some caveat with that. 30 years of ThinkPad. Lenovo celebrating, 30 years of making the ThinkPad, and they have a special limited edition version of the X1 Carbon, which they sent us, and we'll just talk a little bit about that because the ThinkPad is so iconic. Talk a little bit about Twitter, which had quite a week. Qualcomm news is coming out, so Qualcomm, specifically around Nuvia, the next generation ARM processor that they're building, and they use the words inflection point for 2024. They're expecting. We'll put that into context as well. And if we can think of something, we'll have a thing of the week too. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I'm okay. I'm still figuring out this streaming setup because we're doing something a bit different this week. Actually, we might as well open with that. So as you sort of teased there, I've been using the Volterra device for a little while now since it arrived, and it's been an interesting experience. I've been having issues with color contrast, as I think I mentioned last week, on my monitors. It does not play nicely with my HDR monitors. I can still see things. It's just if you're using like the light theme on Windows, it's nothing. It's all the colors mushed together, and it's really hard to differentiate between things. It's a little bit better in dark mode, but most of the web is light, so a lot of web pages still look a bit broken. Anyway, it's a Windows and ARM device, as we all know, so it's not great when running emulated apps. And to do this podcast, we use an app called XSplit, which is 64-bit only as far as I'm aware, and so it would be running under emulation on ARM. Now sadly, I couldn't even get it to run under emulation. It would just error out as it was trying to load up. So the alternative that I've sort of, what we're doing today, I guess, is using a cloud PC to do the stream. I'm using a service called shadow.tech, which I've heard of things about before. It's essentially like think of it as a consumer version of Windows 365, but more aimed at gamers. Although you don't have to use it for games, you can use it for normal PC computing or other tasks like streaming a podcast, which is what we're doing now. And I've only been using it for the last few hours, and so far it's actually surprised me a lot. The latency on it is very low. So if I'm looking at the stream on the cloud PC now, and if I click my fingers, like it's instant. It's quite incredible how quickly the response is. And not only that, the picture quality is basically, it looks like it's running on my Surface Pro here, which is super impressive. All the animations in Windows, the transparency effects, the translucency effects, all of that is working as well, which is weird because usually when you connect to a remote PC, Windows disables all those sort of fancy animations, but here they're running full force, and they're not dropping frames. It's looking really good. I think there's 3 configurations of it. I'm using the basic one, which is £30 a month. It's not cheap. It is £30 a month, but you do get super fast internet, which is great. So we can now stream this podcast at 4K if I wanted to. Not that we're going to do that.
We don't need to see my pores.
Yeah, exactly. But it does allow me to do this podcast so I'm on Volterra using Skype talking to Dan. We have a third. The cloud PC is also in the call, and they're pulling our feeds now and streaming. So the Intel, or I think it's an Intel, Intel cloud PC somewhere in the world is doing the stream. Me and Dan are chatting over Skype. We can both be on ARM devices. It doesn't matter. But that's how we're getting around it for the time being. Anyway, I don't know if we'll do this every week, but it's an interesting experiment, and I guess it's a solution to a problem that you will only really find on Windows and ARM, where some apps, Microsoft never confirmed that 100% of Windows apps would work on Windows and ARM. And I guess XSplit is one of those examples where it, for some reason, just doesn't. So this is the alternative. Yes, I am paying £30 a month for it, but this is the kind of thing you can think about. Microsoft already has Windows 365, right? And surely it wouldn't take much more for them to launch a consumer version of that service, and then that service can be marketed as for this. If you're running a Windows and ARM PC and you need an app that isn't going to run well or doesn't run at all, Windows 365, boot that up, and you can even like place it on your desktop on your ARM PC, and it will run as if it was running natively on the device anyway. So yeah, this is a super interesting experiment. I'm still sort of learning the ropes, but so far my impressions are very positive. It is very expensive, but it's very positive, and I'm very impressed with the tech. Streaming has come so far.
I'm smiling because, well, 2 things. Someone's asking what cameras we're using. I'm on the Lumina AI camera again. Still the best camera I've ever used. I still have to write up the Nexigo review, but been a busy week. I'm also laughing there, asking if the dog's in the room. Yes, she actually is in. I was just playing tug of war with her. She just came up with her rope and wanted to play now, of course. So if you hear her growling during this podcast, that's going to be why. But that's cool with the ARM and the Volterra and the cloud computing thing. I've heard of that Shadow service for a while. People obviously use it for gaming primarily. But that's kind of a cool usage of it. It goes to show you the power of where cloud computing can go. I would never need anything like that because I just don't do anything powerful enough that would require such.
The only criticism I have of the service so far is that they only offer Windows 10 cloud PCs. The Windows 11 is not available yet. They said they're evaluating it, but they're not allowing it right now. So that's a shame. So I am running this on a Windows 10 PC. But other than that, it's
3 out of 5 stars.
Yes.
Well, that's pretty good at least. Yeah, well, keep us posted and we'll see if we continue doing that. But it seems like it's working well. Yeah. Let's turn, I guess, attention to Satya Nadella. This is one of those things. Yeah, all right. Here we go. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella will receive $55 million worth of compensation this year, as outlined by a recent company SE filing. Over 95% of Nadella's compensation is performance-based, over 95%, which is up from the figure in 2021, which was 71%. The vast majority of his compensation is in the form of 42.269 million worth of stock options. So it's not liquid, right? They didn't actually just give him $42 million. They just gave him that money in stock. When his compensation was made public, many expressed disapproval of the 55 million figure. Several on social media pointed towards recent company layoffs, implying that the money that went to Nadella could have saved jobs. I wonder how many salaries could be paid with 55 million, surely enough to cover for most people. Everybody has opinions on this stuff. It is always sort of a controversial. There's this idea that CEOs shouldn't be making more than a certain amount of the lowest paid employee at a company. And, the ratio, really has gone up astronomically. I'm a little mixed on this because I feel like, first of all, if you agree just to live in a capitalist society and, all the other times you're going around talking about how awesome capitalism is and, lamenting socialist countries, you can't really say anything here. It's just like, oh, that's the system we all apparently bought into. It's sort of like when something goes on sale that people don't like or disapprove of. It's like, yeah, too bad. That's called the free market. You're all supposed to be a fan of it. So there's that angle here. There's also what would someone be able to do, right? The only thing you could do is nationally, there's a law saying that CEOs can only make so much more than a certain employee in the company, right? That ratio. That would never happen, right? Because Congress who is in the pockets of corporations, who gets paid, through lobbyists and donations, will surely never agree to that. And of course, I just brought it up. They even brought it, this as a law. It would be like, socialism and communism and all this kind of stuff. So I almost don't know the point of debating this. It's sort of like, well, what's going to happen? Individual companies, of course, could do something. We have seen in the past, and Microsoft's been one of these that sort of leads on, especially social issues. So they could try to be a little bit more responsible, and maybe they will. I will say, tying his bonus or whatever his pay is to, what was it, 95%? 95% of his compensation is performance based. How many of you want a job where 95% of your job is the pay is based on performance? I mean, that's a risk, right? So obviously it's a lot of money because Microsoft has done well, which is sort of why he gets paid so much. He's increased the stock price by insane amounts since he took over around, 2014, 2015. And he's really turned around the company, both internally as a culture, but also in terms of business. He's been doing well. I keep mentioning when we go over to their financials about how something like 18 quarters, they beat the street for expectations, right? That's really impressive to do. So, being 95, this could have gone the other way. If they had a really terrible quarter or terrible year and the company is sinking, like, he's going to not get paid a lot, right? Because 95% is based on his performance. And I don't know, like, if you're going to base pay for a CEO, I think, Jesus, 95% based on performance is actually a pretty good thing, because there's so much incentive then to do right. Although I guess there's diminishing returns, 40 million, 50 million, how much is enough, right? Should also say that the 42 million of that is just stock options. And this is always the weird thing about when you talk about finance. It's like Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. It's like, yeah, he is on paper. He doesn't have, billions in liquid cash. It's tied up in stock, Tesla and SpaceX. And that's only relevant until the stock if it stays up. If it goes down dramatically, guess what? He's not worth. And same thing here. So he's getting 42 million worth of stock options. But if Microsoft stock tanks, well, that 42 million is no longer worth that. So it's not like they just wheeled him a barrel of, $55 million in cash and he just put it into the bank. So, this is moving money around. This is just sort of how this stuff works. I don't know. Like I said, I think people every time these numbers come out, they always get a little bit mad and stuff. I think maybe CEO shouldn't be making that much. I think the bigger concern is talking about what average workers should be making, right? I think boosting that pay up is a better argument. And we saw that recently because post-pandemic, the unemployment rate was so low, and a lot of people have been switching jobs, going to new jobs and getting much more money. And that's sort of that market at work there. And I think that's a little bit more interesting. Granted, not everyone has benefited from that. If you're working more in the service class, you don't get as much benefit. But I don't know what else that can be done here unless you want to completely reform the economic system, as we've shown in the United States. You can't even bring it up without being labeled a commie, left-wing, revolutionary. So it's like, well, then this is the system we all agree to. And if the numbers are right for 2023, the whole system's going to kind of go down next year, and everybody's going to be poor. So it will be poor because inflation's going to be so high. So we'll see what happens. I don't know, Zach. Do you have I know you don't have a ton of opinions, but
no, I don't. I mean, I don't see the point in getting upset over unless like it's a small company and you have actual influence, then sure. But when big, massive, giant corporations like this, I don't see the point in getting upset. It's like this is how they all operate. This is the same everywhere. If you want that money, become a CEO. Just work up. How did Thatcher get there? He's supposed to start as an engineer, right? Surely.
Yeah, so, I mean, his story is really interesting, right? I mean, he came from India, started just working at Microsoft as an engineer, and just literally worked his way up the ladder to become CEO. There is this issue in the United States where if you're born into money, you obviously have a massive head start. It's not unusual that a lot of CEOs come from wealthy families and they went to the best schools and they already got that leg up in the industry. Being a white male has also historically been very beneficial for this. Right. That's luckily changing now, but that's sort of the reality of the situation. So, but he's a great example of success, and so long as Microsoft continues to deliver, which they are, then he's going to get a lot of money. But and don't forget, Microsoft employees benefit from this too. A lot of companies, including Microsoft, give out stock options to employees, and so they get performance-based, too. It's not as much, of course. They still just get a flat salary, luckily, but they get vested options in the company. I know Starbucks did this as well, and if you've been working at Starbucks, you started 15 years ago. Your stock, is going to be worth a ton. And so that's also, I like this idea. Our company does it, profit sharing. Everybody gets a little bit bonus at the end of the year, assuming the company does well. I think that's actually sort of the way to do this, is sort of tie in performance for all the employees.
Yeah.
Anywho, that's the Nadella's pay thing. If you want to sound off in comments, go right ahead. Of course, I'm sure everybody has an opinion on that. Let's talk a little about Surface Pro 9 ARM. We talked about it last week a little bit. I'm still, reviewing it and been using it a lot more this week. And my opinion is it's definitely improved a little bit. There's still some bugs and quirky things. For instance, when I'm using YouTube and Edge, I notice sometimes if I'm switching between tabs, I usually have quite a few tabs open, and I'm playing a full HD video. Sometimes the video comes back and it's the sound, the audio is out of sync, and I just need to briefly change the resolution to 720p and then bring it back to 1080 or higher, and then it goes back in. I've seen that previously on other ARM devices. I'm not really sure what's going on there. I've had a couple times, I think this is kind of a general Surface devices where you have removable keyboard. Sometimes you turn it back on and the mouse doesn't show up, so you just have to pull the keyboard off and reattach it, and it does that. But other than that, the battery life has been good. It's not like ridiculous. It's not like 15 hours or whatever like that, but it's definitely going to be a couple hours more than the Intel version. And that's really the only goal there. It's literally, an extra 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours on a device is kind of a make or break from being all day. And this does feel like an all day device. And it feels in a lot of ways like the Pro X in terms of its battery life, where you could just charge this up at the beginning of the day and go the full day using it and just come home at night and have 20%, 25% battery left, depending on how much you use the 5G aspect of it. And that's the other thing, right? The 5G. Now, I haven't got to use it too much for 5G this week, but that's the other selling point. In terms of the performance of it, for me, it's fine. And I mean, fine as in good, right? It feels like an 11th gen Core i5 when you're using basically anything that's native ARM64. I used Unigram this week, which is ARM64. That's a Telegram client that's in the Microsoft Store. I told you about how I use Slack as a PWA. I use Twitter as a PWA, which it is in the store as well. And relying on Edge a lot for all my work, and of course using the new Outlook. And for my job, which is very information-based, triage, responding a lot to Slack, Telegram, Skype, using the web, using Office, from that perspective, I've had zero issue with it. I have the ARM version of Spotify installed. Not that I use it much. I don't know. I want to watch a video, want to play a movie. It's been great in that sense. But like I said, it really depends how you're using your device.
Yeah.
If you want to use, I'm an engineer, I'm a developer, and I need this and that, I need a lot of performance, obviously this isn't the right choice. But I've always said this about ARM. That's why I've always been happy using ARM devices, because for my job as a journalist, as a site runner, it's like, it's been great. Could it be better? Of course it can, but Intel could be better. AMD can be better. Apple could be better, right? Yeah. So that's not really an argument.
So the biggest hangups I've had really is just it's Electron apps that haven't been compiled natively for ARM. Like even non-Electron emulated apps are okay, but it's just the Electron one, which is a shame because it's most of the social apps you use on Windows are Electron, Skype, Slack. They're all Electron based, and none of them are compiled for ARM natively. So they're horrible to use on ARM. So the alternative is to use third-party ones. So I use Unigram, like Dan does. Unigram is great. Telegram client. It's UWP based, or at least it used to be. It might be WinUI based or Win32 now. I'm not too sure, but it's great and it's ARM native. It's really nice. I don't think there's any alternative for Skype or Slack. So I guess you can use the web-based versions, which is what Dan does. I just don't. I just want to suffer with the actual.
Wow, why? Why would you not?
Because I don't know. I just don't. I don't like it. I prefer because I like having Slack closed, but have it running in the background. And you can't really do that with the web version. You have to minimize it instead of close it. Because if you close the web page, the notifications stop coming in.
Does it? I forgot how it works.
As far as at least it did the last time I tried it. I don't know if Edge has updated so that it can run in the background now. I'm not sure. But anyway, that's why I do it. Same for Skype. I have like having Skype running in the background, and so that's why I use it that way. But are you playing with your dog?
Yeah, we're doing tug of war as I do this podcast. She really loves tug of war.
So yeah, those are. I wish there was a way for Microsoft to force these Electron developers to adopt ARM, because it would just make Windows and ARM so much nicer. It would basically resolve almost all the issues I have with it currently.
Electron is complicated because it uses a lot of separate components, but I believe some of it is being. Yeah, there's an ARM build of it. It's like in the works and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, that one's a little complicated, that's for sure. But as we mentioned, Electron is not great even on x86. Granted, x86 will overpower it, but they still don't run as well as other apps, and Slack is a good example of that. Even Teams isn't that great, right?
Yeah, that is ARM though, but it is just. But Teams is just a dog, so that's why. Yeah, it's just not good. Someone in the chat, Dennis mentions a great app, WhatsApp, which moved to WinUI. I believe they were Electron originally, but they just recently moved to WinUI on top of Win32, and it's great. But what's interesting is that app is not ARM native; it's 64-bit only. but you wouldn't know. I thought it was native for ages, and I know checked in Task Manager and it's actually running an emulation. But you just, because it's not an Electron app, because it's Win32 and it's WinUI based, you can barely even feel it. And so that's why I think it's important for either all app developers to adopt WinUI and drop Electron, or compile your ARM with Electron for ARM64. Those are the two options. Can you please do something, developers? It's so annoying that they refuse. I hate developers' attitude towards Windows. How they just sort of go, nah, we're not gonna do anything. You guys can suffer. Whereas Apple comes along and they're like, hey, we're changing this, and this on iPhone and Mac, and developers are like, right, drop everything. Let's do that and make sure we have support for that instantly. I hate it.
Yeah, the issue is, and we'll talk. Actually, we'll just kind of fade into this discussion now. When does ARM become enough of a value play for bigger publishers to start converting their apps and taking the lead on this stuff? So in Qualcomm news, I'm still kind of going through the story myself. There was just some more details about Nuvia, which of course has been delayed a little bit. So they were supposed to be in the hands of OEMs at this point, early samples and testing. And I think they're still getting like early samples and demonstrations of it, right? It's not like they haven't invented the chip yet. It's just the process of where it's going. And then it was supposed to kind of come out in late 2023 in terms of actually going on sale in a real computers. That's been pushed back now a little bit to 2024, which of course, yeah, is not great. We'll see how late in the market that is in 2024. So things are definitely pushed back. But they said this was Cristiano Amon. I always get his name wrong, but he's a chief executive of Qualcomm. He says we expect to see an inflection point in Windows on Snapdragon PCs in 2024 based on a significant number of design wins to date. We increased OEM design wins and ecosystem traction for our next generation Windows on Snapdragon solutions, which incorporate our custom CPUs. What that translates to is it sounds like OEMs are impressed with Nuvia and where it's going, and that when they talk about design wins, I think they mean that they're getting commitments for OEMs to make PCs, and it sounds like they're getting a lot more interests in this next generation processor to create new devices. Like, in other words, we should be seeing many more of these type of PCs coming in 2024, what they call an inflection point for ARM, which is something we've never really talked about because up to now there's obviously been no inflection point. We can kind of point to small ones. The fact that the Surface Pro 9 is merged with Surface Pro X is a small inflection point. That's definitely a vote of confidence from Microsoft that they're putting it on their main devices. But in terms of the overall market and adoption, we've always been kind of hit and miss. We'll see HP do a device and then take a year or two off, and then Lenovo will do one.
Still waiting for Dell.
Yeah, still waiting on Dell, who's been very conservative in regard to this. And then Microsoft will have one. It's been kind of, Acer, I think, has had them too. And so it kind of bounces around that way, but it's not been like mass adopted. It's always been they test markets, right? Lenovo's tested a few different markets for this, and same thing with HP. But it sounds like, according to the head of Qualcomm, that they're expecting large adoption in 2024. Like we haven't seen before. And I think that's pretty significant.
I do wonder if there's any correlation with the 2024 date and the current schedule with Windows Next Valley being also a 2024 release. It wouldn't surprise me if there's that inflection point. Things come together in 2024 from the silicon to the hardware and the software, where there's more performance, more AI features, whatever it may be, tied to this Windows 2024 release, which they can all sell as a new version of Windows, similar to what they did with Windows 11, except I guess on the ARM side they focus more on the NPU and the increased performance gains and how I don't know how energy efficient they will be, but if they are comparable to the M1 or M2 in any way capacity, I'm almost certain that will be an advertising point. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if all of this is all sort of comes together as one coherent plan between Microsoft, Qualcomm, ARM, you name it. And yeah, the fall 2024 will be super interesting as well, because that's assumingly when next Valley will launch will be fall 2024. And I know aren't Nuvia chips supposed to start shipping in like late 2023, which I guess will mean 2024.
Yeah, to OEMs to start building PCs. Yeah, we don't have a time frame when in 2024. It could be January 1st. It could be December 5th, right?
Sure.
So no idea on that. And don't forget, Qualcomm is tied up in lawsuits with ARM Limited over the technology in Nuvia, which needs to be settled. I think that might have been playing a role in this too, whether there'll be a settlement or a win or something like that. But as Tom's Guide wrote, a sister site of ours, furthermore, this shows their assurance of performance and competitive advantages that such computers may provide, which is a good sign both for Qualcomm and other designers of ARM-powered.
I will say Microsoft also does expect Nuvia to be able to compete with a theoretical M3 or M4 from Apple. Like I'm guessing Qualcomm told them this. I don't know why they think this, but I'm assuming Qualcomm has guaranteed that, hey, we expect to be able to compete with the Apple M series when we start shipping these chips. And so Microsoft, I think, is preparing for that. Like I've heard last year in 2021, I had heard that this year would sort of be a sort of runway year for Windows and ARM, where they're preparing and getting ready to lift off and sort of have the platform fly, essentially. So this is why we've seen Volterra. Volterra is part of that preparation. That's why we've seen Microsoft combine. It was up in the air whether they do it this year or next year. They ended up doing it this year, but combining the Pro X with the Pro 9, that's another step forward to sort of normalizing ARM and just treating it as another part of the Windows ecosystem. And then next year is more of that, and maybe we'll see more OEMs start adopting Windows and ARM. And then 2024 will be the year where takeoff happens, and like we are now at parity with Apple and blah blah blah. I think next year or within the next 2 years up to 2024, I also think we're going to see more Surface devices adopt ARM. Things like the next Surface Go are rumored to be ARM based. I would also not be surprised if we end up seeing an ARM chip, an SQ series maybe, I don't know what it would be, but an ARM chip in the Surface laptop in addition to Surface Pro, because that makes sense as well, right? If Apple does the ARM in laptops, why shouldn't Surface? So and that's the only way Microsoft is going to convince its partners, its OEMs, that ARM is good enough for these form factors. Instead of, as Dan mentioned, a lot of OEMs are still sort of treating ARM PCs as the experimental edition for the year, whereas Microsoft would really like it if they stopped doing that and just started offering ARM as another option for PCs, similar to how some OEMs offer Intel and AMD. Like, you know, it's nobody looks at the AMD one and go, oh, that's the experimental one, or no one looks at the Intel one and goes, oh, that's the experimental one. It's just an option, and Microsoft would like ARM to get there on the Windows space as well.
And you know, you brought up Volterra, and that's so critical. Like, it just came out. It's the first proper ARM development kit for Windows. There's a reason that didn't come out 2 years ago. It's not like they didn't think of it, but it's just everything. The developer tools are coming together as ARM64 as well. And so now, you know, what we were just talking about, we want to see more apps go ARM64. The whole point of releasing a dev kit is that, to give developers both the hardware, because if you think about it, developers up to this point would have to go out and buy a $1,200 ARM device that's like a computer and try to either develop on it or use an external display, or, you know, it just, they'd have to load their app onto it after building it on x86. Like but now they could just do it all on a one device. It's actually competitively priced at $599. It has 32 gigs of RAM. But to keep in mind, it literally just came out, meaning we're not going to see the fruits of this, and you know, till
another
6 months,
2 years,
9 months, a year, right? It's going to take a little while for developers to pick it up and start using it, and then start working on coding. So, but that is the goal of it. And just going by on Twitter, I follow quite a few developers. I was actually surprised at the amount that I've seen go and buy this kit, and are pretty happy with it.
I think it's because it's just so affordable. Like $600 for 32 gigs of RAM, half a terabyte of NVMe storage, and the flagship Qualcomm processor for PCs. That's a deal. I know. Sadly, it is dev kit, so like it technically isn't a consumer product, but you can still buy one and use it as a normal PC. You may run into a few issues, like I have with HDR monitors, but if you're using a normal display, I guess you'll probably be having a good time with it. Assuming you obviously know the limitations of emulation and all of that other stuff we've already talked about. Also, the name Windows Dev Kit 2023. The fact that they put the name, the year in there, tells me that they plan to do another one in the future, like a Windows Dev Kit 2025. Maybe I don't think they'll do one.
Right.
In 2024. Could be wrong, but I doubt it. But 2025, I think, would probably be the earliest for the next one. And that would probably have a Nuvia-based chip, because those would be ready by then. And that would be really nice.
Yeah, one thing we don't know is there going to be an HCX Gen 4, in the meantime.
That's true. I don't know. Yeah.
So Qualcomm is having their summit, Snapdragon Summit, in 2 weeks, I believe. There'll be some announcements there, of course, around their future processors, and both for phones and AI and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully they'll talk about ARM on PC. I wouldn't expect any real demonstrations of anything until next November for the next Snapdragon Summit. I think that's going to be the big year for this stuff, so that's going to be one to watch out for. But
I wouldn't be surprised if the lineup for ARM for Qualcomm, on the PC side goes. The Nuvia stuff is like top end, like the Core i9, and then you have the HCX Gen 4, whatever it's called, as like the Core i7, and then you have the HCX or the 8C. They do an 8C, don't they? It's not just the X.
Right.
They've got 8Cs, they've got 7Cs. I guess the 8C would be like the i5, and then the 7C would be like the Intel Celeron or the Pentium.
Yeah, we don't know how these are going to scale in terms of performance. Is there just one chip and it just performs at X speeds, or are they going to be like, how Intel does their chips? Most people know this is they fab the processor. The ones that are the super high quality with no issues become the i9s. Yeah. And as the quality deteriorates and can't do as much performance, that's the i7, sure. That's the i5 and the i3. And some of the cores change, of course, but that's usually how the silicon comes out. So we don't know if they're doing something similar, or how these are going to be priced. They will be, as Zach says, premium, but does that mean premium as in replacing the HCX series? I don't know. A lot of questions. But I think it's exciting stuff. But yeah, we're still a while before this stuff kind of catches up to where Apple is and where Intel is going. But it's going to be fun to watch. It's just going to get better from here, assuming ARM Limited doesn't win its lawsuit against Qualcomm.
Yeah, what happens if they win? That's bad.
Well, even if they win, it could be appealed.
Sure.
I don't know if they'll necessarily win. So Qualcomm might just try to settle. I think part of it has to do with ARM is claiming Qualcomm is using some of its technology without continuing to pay license fees for that. In which case, I feel like that they could just agree to a lump sum of money that they're owed, as well as going forward if they want to continue, versus being forbidden to use it. But then again, ARM is supposedly getting a little bit more strict with its licensing and the technology use of their stuff. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
I will say, Michael Fisher, also known as the Mr. Mobile, is in chat, and he does ask a genuine question. Are you guys not tired of waiting for the Microsoft ecosystem to catch up when it comes to Windows and ARM? He was stoked about Snapdragon PCs in 2018. So yeah, he's basically highlighting that, it's been 4 years of Windows and ARM now. Technically, it's been 10 years because Windows RT was also Windows and ARM. But 4 years.
And it was announced in 2016.
Right, exactly. It has been a very long road, and we're still not there yet. And I think the problem comes down to marketing. A lot of the initial Snapdragon PCs were just mobile phone chips. The Snapdragon 850 was a repurposed 845, if I'm remembering correctly. I can't remember. It wasn't designed specifically for PCs, and that really didn't start happening until the HCX, right? Even then, I think the HCX is still a customized mobile chip, but it's more tailored for PC performance. And the Gen 3 is the first one that really sort of gets there in regards to PC performance that you would expect. The only problem we're hitting now, of course, is the emulation layer just not being great for a lot of the Electron apps, as we just sort of talked about. Nuvia will hopefully improve that, because again, more performance means the emulation layer will run faster, but there's only so much software can do to emulate poorly optimized apps in general. So we'll have to wait and see what Nuvia is able to do for those emulated apps. But that's the main issue is the emulated apps. If every Windows app had been compiled for ARM already, then we wouldn't be having this performance conversation, because the performance is already there for native apps. It's just the emulated stuff that still isn't.
And as far as my response goes, it really depends. So I'm one of, Fisher hasn't found value in using ARM devices, so that question is very valid. For myself, though, I've been using them for the last couple of years because they do solve problems for me. One, I'm usually getting LTE or now 5G with these devices that are thinner, lighter, don't have fans, don't get hot, and the most important thing, are getting more battery life than their Intel counterparts. Meanwhile, they serve the needs I need to do for my job. So if I'm traveling around, they're what I use. So for me, it is solving problems and it's fine. But like I said, could it be better? Of course it can. But like, I'm getting to the point where it's like, this stuff is pretty fine, but it depends on what you need to do. If you want to edit video, if you want to run, older apps, you want to do CAD or stuff like that, obviously these aren't a solution.
Well, that's the thing. If developers had compiled their video editors for ARM already, I think you could probably do it. But that's the problem. It comes back to the fact that developers just aren't compiling those apps for. Adobe has been so slow at compiling their apps for Windows and ARM. I think so far we've got Photoshop and Lightroom out of their entire suite of applications, and they were on stage with the Surface Pro X in 2019 as a partner of Windows on ARM, and they have only delivered 2 apps, and those apps work great. They work great, but it's only 2.
There may be news around that. So
I would hope so, because it's been a long time.
It's because those apps are super complicated.
No, I get it. I don't get why, but it's just like it's just I guess it's what Michael Fisher brings up. It's just waiting. We're still waiting, and that's just what it's felt like the whole time. It's just waiting and waiting and waiting.
But it's that chicken egg problem, right? It's like you got to convert the apps so the experience is good, so people buy the PCs. But for developers, people got to buy the PCs so they see the demand to make the apps. So it's like it's a tough issue, to solve. It's like we said, they're not Apple. They didn't just say we're giving up on x86. You all need to convert everything to ARM, otherwise, your app.
Maybe they should have said that just to scare everyone.
There's no way they could, because of x86 is too entrenched.
Everybody would go and buy a Mac. That's what would happen if they said
that. So great. I'm playing tug of war again here. Okay, so that's the Surface Pro 9 Nuvia chat. So come on, dog. I can't play with you right now. 30 years of ThinkPad. So that's the story. The ThinkPad, I think, is one of the most interesting laptops because it's so associated with a certain type of worker, the business person on a train, on a plane, traveling around the country, or just at work, with a black laptop with some red accents that's super rugged, that just takes abuse, is the ideal coffee stand to use when it's not turned on, and has that famous red nub in the middle of the keyboard. And of course, ThinkPad was originally an IBM company, and then they sold it off and got out of that whole market. And then it's now owned by a Chinese company, basically. Although they're based still, I think they have, in Texas, they have a large presence. But the ThinkPad has just been, Lenovo is still the world's top PC shipper by volume. They just, they're in, of course, the consumer market, but their enterprise solutions for the ThinkPad is just massive. There's just so many of them. And they are celebrating their 30th anniversary by releasing a limited edition X1 Carbon, which is a, they call it, and I think they're right, it's their, it continues to embody the core values of an ideal mobile business laptop. And it's their flagship device for business. It's got everything. It has options for 4G, for 5G. You can get full HD, you can get glossy, you can get the high resolution WQHD, whatever it is now, because they switched to a 16:10 aspect ratio. You get Windows Hello, you get They have their new thing with their keyboard, which has little tiny holes underneath it for venting, yet still retains the water resistance. If you spill a spill resistant keyboard on it, they're still military spec'd for drops and damage, carbon fiber, all that jazz. So the new 30th anniversary version, I like it. I wish they kind of did a little bit more with it, but the big thing about it is the logo. The logos on it have the ThinkPad RGB colors. So it's a throwback to the legacy. It's on the front cover and on inside. It also has 30th anniversary stamped on it on the front keyboard deck. They are also individually numbered. There's a metal band on the hinge. So there's only 5,000 of these being made. And so you get the little stamp on there, to commemorate that. So 5,000 is actually quite a lot. It's not that limited. But it is what it is kind of thing. Hold on a sec. I forgot to turn off my my notifications here. Getting a lot of vibrations. But yeah, it's a so this anniversary edition also has a Core i7 P series, so it's the very powerful one. You get Windows 11 Pro, Intel Iris Xe, so no, super dedicated graphics. Up to 32 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM, 1 terabyte SSD, which of course is user upgradable, and you get the 14-inch 3840 by 2400 60 hertz 500 nit display, which is touch, anti-reflective, and anti-smudge. And you get Dolby Atmos, Dolby Vision, and Dolby Voice. Actually, fun fact, Lenovo is the only company right now using Lenovo Voice. They have kind of an early exclusive on it. Lenovo Voice is a optimization of the microphones for filtering out background noise and improving your audio during conference calls. In fact, they have what's called on here their conference bar, which is a combination of the new full HD web camera and the Windows Hello stuff. They separated out the lenses for the camera. So there's an IR, the IR and the RGB lenses used to be stacked on top of each other to save space. They've now separated them, which just means the front-facing camera has a better quality. Still think HP does a better web camera, and Microsoft, of course, does them really well, but Lenovo's getting there. You also get quad speakers and all that kind of jazz. This puppy will set you back almost $2,300, which is a little bit more. You also get a special commemorative packaging, which, who cares, I guess. It's kind of cool, though, where that red nub for the trackpoint system we were just talking about, of course, it has that, which personally I do not like, and I hate it because it makes the touchpad smaller. But they included special RGB nubs. So I don't know if a lot of people know this. You can just pull off that nub. You'll just have the little joystick below. It doesn't look great. So you can add a green one or a blue one, or there's a different a darker kind of red one. So you can kind of customize it. So I have the blue one on mine right now, which looks kind of wild. So it's a way to kind of customize it. I have the photos up on the site. It's kind of cool. Now, this isn't the first time they did this. They actually did a 25th anniversary one a couple years ago. I still have that device. It's actually right near my feet at this point because it's so cool. Unfortunately, the battery died, so I got to replace it. So that one was different. That was a T470 that was kind of reworked. They did the same thing, the RGB logos on it, but what was cool about that one was they used their old school original 8-row keyboard on it with the different keycaps. So they actually with the retro keycaps on it, and it's a really good keyboard, right? And it's just the rest of the hardware is meh. The T470 can be a really cool laptop, but it's only got like a full HD display. They did add the GeForce 940 MX for GPU, which was kind of unique. But comparatively today, this is a dual Core i7 processor. So it goes to show you how much we've progressed with 16 gigabytes of DDR4. But it's such a fun laptop to use and so rugged. And the T470 is like, that's kind of a legendary device. That's the one that most workers would get, whereas the X1 Carbon is basically reserved for executives, right? It's the more premium version. But I kind of wish they did a little bit more with the X1 Carbon. Changed up the keyboard, done something like what they did with the T470 25th anniversary. That would, I think, have been a little bit more interesting. But still, the ThinkPad, always a fun device. Like I said, just so much history behind it, and congratulations, I guess.
I've never been a huge fan of the ThinkPad's design. I always think it's just too sort of businessy, I guess. I don't know how, because compared from Dell, HP, Surface, like they all have very sort of slick looking, like this.
Yeah,
thin.
well,
I mean, they're all thin, but you know what I mean.
If you try a Dell Latitudes do the same.
Sure,
the same.
So what's Lenovo's like Ultrabook sort of MacBook Air competitor that they have?
They were the Yogas.
The Yogas, that makes sense.
They kind of changed the names a little bit. Oh yeah, I still consider the Lenovo. I think it's a Yoga. I always forget now. It's a C9 14-inch. I don't know. I forget their names now. But the 14-inch it's one of the best laptops you can buy right now. I was just picking it up the other day with its gorgeous OLED display, the speaker hinge on it. It's now they have the 9i version, which is the non-convertible. So yeah, their premium stuff is really nice. But I mean, you are right. The ThinkPads, like, listen, these are laptops that are historically dispersed to employees, like getting a badge, getting a cubicle. Here's your ThinkPad, right? And they last forever. And there's actually a Reddit group called Our ThinkPad, it's fun to go check it out. If you don't believe me, why I'm spending time on this, go to that group and you'll see what nerds these guys are. They rebuild old ThinkPads. Some of them are still using them. A lot of times they buy old ones, and like there's just like this real love of these things. But yeah, I hate the track point system. And now they have their new version, the ZPad, the ThinkPad Z line. Which uses AMD, which is a much more modern looking device. I think it's something, actually, Zach, it's something you would actually like, and it uses a haptic trackpad and all that kind of stuff.
I was just trying to find my my Lenovo Yoga Book, the first gen one. That first gen Yoga Book is still something else, man.
Is that the orange one? The one you're talking about?
No, the one with the Halo keyboard.
The Yoga Book. Okay, yeah. I was just thinking the Yoga. I have the original Yoga downstairs. I think it was the orange one. Those were thin and huge too.
That first gen Yoga Book, the Halo keyboard, is insane. I found it. I don't know where it is. I found it the other day. It's like,
I got it right here.
It's like a few millimeters. It's so thin.
Yeah.
I love that thing. I think it's gorgeous. I wish they would make, because I know they made a sequel to that, but it had like an e-ink display for the second gen and stuff. I want them to go back to this Halo keyboard thing.
I got them both right here. I got to charge them, but they're micro USB.
I was gonna say if they remade the first gen with an updated ARM processor, that'd be brilliant. And USB-C, I'd buying that straight away.
Sure. The reason that they could, I guess, do ARM, but from what I understand, these are technically Intel reference designs that they build off of.
God damn it,
so that's why they're Intel. So Intel basically sort of co-design these things. Well, Intel designs them and then gives them to OEMs, who can then take the idea and run with it and make their own version of it. That's the difference with Intel and AMD. I've talked about
to my knowledge. That was a similar story with the Neo as well. That's when Neo was an Intel device, because it was in partnership designed with Intel. So Intel, stop ruining all the fun form factors.
Qualcomm needs to get involved with that, right? Qualcomm doesn't do this either. They do have like a reference design laptop, to demonstrate the chip in real time, but it's not necessarily a reference design to go build, or we haven't seen yet. But yeah, that's what Intel does. They actually help engineer these devices, and that helps OEMs. And that's because Intel wants to push different form factors and keep expanding the market. And the way they see they can do that is by trying to create new experiences that OEMs can then try to adopt and, make the market more interesting again. I've always appreciated that Intel does that. But yeah, those Yoga books are kind of fun. I go and charge mine up now. I think I already put Windows 11 on one.
I had a nightmare getting Windows 11 on the first gen one, but I got there in the end. You have to like slipstream the drivers into the boot.
I didn't do that.
It's a whole nightmare, but you can do it.
Yeah. And plus, it's going to take forever because these aren't fast processors.
Yeah, it can take a good day.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So normally we do questions at the end of the podcast. Opinion on OLED laptops. I mean, they look gorgeous. They've gotten better because Samsung used to prescribe the color gamut for them for OEMs, which I thought was overkill and super saturated and just too intense. This current generation OEMs can configure the color profile, and they've been doing that and making it closer to an IPS. You're still going to get the super deep blacks, of course, but it's not as insanely contrasty as that Samsung thinks is good. Which, don't get me wrong, the first time you see an OLED laptop, you're like, oh my God, it's so crazy. I love it. But then try using it for like an hour and your eyes are going to be like, that is too much contrast. I don't need that much. So they've gotten better. There's still a little risk of screen burn, but there's been workarounds with that, and I haven't really heard too many complaints. My issue is it depends how you use your laptop. If you're going to need battery life, OLED is not the way to go. OLED still uses more power. And I know everybody's going to be like, you better the black pixels if you use a black wallpaper. And like, yeah, it still needs a lot more light to power things. And they're still just more battery hungry in general. For my testing. And
I was going to say, you may have a black desktop wallpaper, but aren't you in a browser most of the time where the internet is mostly white?
Yeah.
So,
and I've talked to OEMs about this off the record, and they say, yeah, OLED's not going to get as much good battery life.
Do you think we're basically just going to skip over OLED for the most part and just move to mini LED on laptops?
Well, I mean, we're not skipping over, right? There's a lot of OLED laptops right now.
I guess I'm referring to Surface, I guess, primarily.
Yeah, I might bet. Yeah, Surface won't use OLED because of the battery life thing. I mean, there's a reason why, like, sort of the new thing. Speaking of ThinkPad X13s with an ARM processor, doesn't have an OLED display, right?
Yeah, right.
Because they're trying to maximize battery life on that device, and going OLED, which would look good, just uses more power. So. But yeah, I mean, if you get that Yoga 9, and I'm forgetting the name. I gotta get the name right here. I feel dumb. Yoga 14. I don't know.
Any day now.
Well, there's the 9i. Oh, the C940. That's what it is. I think. Is that the? I think it's a C940. Whatever. You can look it up. It's a really good laptop. We're pretty much calling it the laptop of the year. So,
someone's pointing out, I thought OLED uses a lot less battery. That's kind of true on phones, but only because there's so many. There's such smaller panels. I believe that's the reason why, right? Because the larger the panel, the more it has to power. So I think that's why it's more energy. But that's great. Go on.
On any laptop, the display is the number one draw of power. It's up to 50 or 60% of the battery draw is from the display.
Sure.
That's why it's like so critical when I mentioned full HD or going 4K. You know, it depends what you're looking for. If you really want to maximize in battery life, you don't get a 4K OLED. Like, it's just not going to do the job. If you're a creator and you're working plugged in most of the day, go for a 4K OLED. But yeah, in terms of battery life, they don't get better battery life at all. But like on the Lenovo device gets good battery life. I mean, it's not like terrible. So it also depends on the size of the battery. And so. I don't know.
We talk about Twitter.
Yeah, briefly. So Elon Musk is, of course, he bought Twitter. It's a funny story, right? He joked that he was going to buy it, then he did make an offer to buy it. Well, first he was going to be on the board, and then he backed out from that, said, I'll just buy the company, and did like basically a hostile takeover by going, say, I'll just buy the stocks from people. Blah, blah, blah. And then he looked to back out as the rest of the market was tanking. As I mentioned, his value is tied to his stock of Tesla and SpaceX. An entire market was going down, which means his value capitalization was going down, which means his ability to borrow was going down and becoming more risky, especially since he's got to borrow against his current stock. If he loses, he can sell off stock in SpaceX and Tesla, but if he sells off too much, he loses his controlling share of the company, and he never wants that, right? Because he's always in charge of these companies, and so he's at risk for that. So he was trying to back out, and then Twitter, rightly sued him because he had already signed the contract, and he was trying to say, oh, there's this bot issue and all this, which the controversy was, well, you're supposed to do this kind of due diligence thing, which is negotiate with the company before you don't go buy a house. And then after you buy the house, go, I'm going to do an inspection now.
Yeah.
Oh, there's something wrong with the house. I want my money back. It's like that's not how that really works. You're supposed to, get all that info before you buy the house. That's why so then the lawsuit came, and he was going to lose. 100% he was going to lose, and he knew this, which is why he didn't allow it to go to the trial. It was supposed to start like very soon, and so he just went and did the deal. And it was funny because I remember on Twitter, there's like the Elon stans. And like, I don't hate Elon. I don't love him. He's just another person to me, right? I don't put anyone on a pedestal. And he's done a lot. I do find the people that defend him weird. They act like they're like, he's a genius. And I'm like, has he had an IQ test? I've never seen this. But they literally think he invented like Starlink, like he invented satellites. Right. He invented the rocket. Like he's like in his office drawing, and he's doing the engineering, building these things. Tesla, he invented that company. Tesla was created in 2013 by two other guys who started the company. Elon came in and invested in Tesla, and then eventually increased his investment to the point that he had a controlling share of it, and then took over the company. But Tesla was already in progress when he came in. SpaceX, and specifically Starlink, is based off of other technology. There was another company, I forgot the name, that was already developing these small satellites and were already deploying them and using them. And then they got kind of swallowed up by what is now Starlink with their technology. But even that concept goes back to, I believe it was the 1980s, with what was called SDI, the Star Wars, the Strategic Defense Initiative that was going to take out ICBMs and all this kind of stuff. So he didn't even invent the idea of microsatellites and these little satellites. There was, I have a tweet that documents the history of this, but there was like, he's not the first to make little satellites that have internet and do an IP protocol transfer and all this kind of stuff. That was also done before him. So he doesn't invent anything, and he's not an engineer. And as far as I know, he has no patents. What he does do is buy into companies, and he has ideas on things, and he pushes, and then he hires the people to make those ideas come into play and to become a thing. So he's very good at that. I'll give him that. I don't know if he's a genius. Like people are like, like he's this inventor that's just, I think he's Ben Franklin or something. No, he's a really good investor with bold ideas, and he happened to get lucky. He came from wealth. His family had a lot of money, and then he got involved with PayPal and cashed out of that, had a lot of money there, and he used that money. It's nice when you have a couple $100 million as capital to then go around and find other companies and invest in with that capital, right? You and I couldn't do that, because to get that much capital, it's hard. It's hard to get that ball rolling. Some people can do it. Some people you can give $20,000 and be like, I want to convert that into $500 million. Some people can do that, but a lot of it's luck. Some of it's skill. A lot of it's just having that capital to begin with. So anyway, he was going to, he got forced. But people are saying that, oh, he's going to expose all the bots on Twitter. It's going to be Twitter's going to be, it's going to be a fraud. The government's going to investigate Twitter. The SEC is going to get involved because they was a fraud on investors, and Elon's going to, they're screwed now because during discovery, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And then of course he just goes and buys the company because he was totally going to lose, and he had nothing, no argument against that. So now he's stuck with the company. It's been a wild ride. I think he's laying off about half of the 7,500 staff there, which is super unfortunate. The way it's being done became very public. You're basically at 9 a.m. this morning, I believe, you got an email. Either it was to your Twitter email accounts, in which case you get to keep your job, or you got an email to your personal account, in which case you're being let go. He's doing this to cut back on spending because he needs to get that $44 billion invested in return, so he doesn't lose his other stocks. None of the content moderation technically has changed so far, but until a plan is solidified, advertisers have, in my opinion, rightly pulled back. They're just taking a wait and see approach, and he made a big deal about that today on Twitter.
Yeah,
I don't see any problem with that.
He's been really been like complaining about the whole freedom of speech thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny that advertisers are using their freedom of speech to not advertise on their platform. And he's like, how dare they? It's not fair.
I mean, my message to him is create a great product that people want to use and that advertisers feel safe advertising on. And there you go. But they're worried that, racial slurs went up like 500% after he took over, and people were testing the limits immediately. And if that continues, advertisers they don't want their, here's Tide, here's a Tide advertisement next to like a Nazi posting something, right? So they're taking it's their money. They're not required to run ads on Twitter. And they're going to take a wait and see approach. They're not saying we'll never return to Twitter because Elon Musk is CEO. That's not the story. The story is they want to see what happens. And I think that's pretty smart of a company, especially with someone who's as loose of a cannon as Elon Musk is. And again, like, I respect him and he's done a lot. I own a Model 3. So I obviously believe in his vision. And it's I love the car. I think it's fantastic. But, he's sometimes his own worst enemy. Like, he needs to, in my opinion, he needs to shut up and just be a CEO.
I'm gonna say he's the most transparent CEO I've ever seen at any public or any big company, because all he does is tweet about what he's doing as CEO. Yeah. Like, you don't see Tim Cook or Satya Nadella doing things like that. Like, he's there like, today we're gonna launch an $8 subscription for verified. That's the other thing. He's announced that anyone can be verified as long as you pay $8 a month as part of Twitter Blue, which, Twitter Blue previously was $4 a month or something close to that. And it offered, editing tweets, a few customization options in the app, and a number of other things. And now they're adding verification to that and bumping it to $8. At least that's the rumor. I don't think they've officially announced that yet. Maybe they have. Which is a kind of weird, because previously verification has been free, but it's been super tricky to become verified. You have to basically, all the stars need to align for it to take place, at least in my case, because they have never aligned for me.
Right.
But now the rumor is you will be able to get a verified badge if you pay $8, as long as I assume there will be some sort of verification, sort of ID check. I'm not too sure. But if you currently already have a tick, a verification tick, you also have to start paying. You have 90 days to sign up for Twitter Blue, otherwise your verification tick will be taken away, which has caused a bit of an uproar among the Twitter community. And also because the point of the verified system on Twitter is to be able to identify real or notable people and be able to confirm that is their account. This isn't some imposter, this isn't some troll account, it's their account. But if everybody can sign up for that tick, then that's no longer the case, right? Because I could sign up as a troll account, Elon Musk spelled with a 1 instead of an L, get that verified because I paid $8, and now I'm Elon Musk with a verified tick. I can tweet whatever I want, and it looks like I'm the real Elon Musk. So I'm not too sure.
We don't know the requirements for verification yet, but you're right, it does sound like you just pay $8.
Yeah, I'm hoping this is what you were kind of saying. We've had this chat a while back now where it would be cool if verification was something anybody could do, as long as you provide actual ID, like a passport or a birth certificate. If that's something you can do, then great, and then you can have that, and then you can configure Twitter so you can only see verified accounts if you really want, and that would weed out all of the accounts that don't have it. And now I know a lot of people really don't like that idea, but I think it's fine to have it as an option. It shouldn't be forced upon everybody. But if you want to have the option to have that verified community, then that's what this should be, I think. But I don't think that's what Elon wants to do.
He's got this in terms of, he's a genius. He's just being really dumb here, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This is how it should be done. Open up verification to anyone who wants it. And you're right. It should be tied to your ID, your passport. And then you're forced to use your real name on Twitter.
Yes.
And you get the check mark. And then, as I mentioned on Twitter, you should be able to filter by, you'll only see other verified accounts. And then maybe you have another tab that are unverified, including in responses and stuff like that. And you're not required to be verified. So if you want to, if people want to be anonymous and your job is to follow anonymous people, by all means, you can continue doing that.
Dan's dog is playing with his favorite toy.
Yeah, her toy.
Her toy.
But so you should have that ability to follow anonymous accounts and all this kind of stuff. So people who work in journalism, they can follow stories. That should be totally fine. But yeah, we should have the option, and that should be free. That should absolutely be free for everyone. And then Twitter Blue should be a premium version of Twitter where you get, the ability to upload full HD video that's 10 minutes in length. You can get edit your tweets. You could do scheduling. You can customize the app. You can customize the views. You can get rid of some of the ads. And you pay for that. And if you make a good product, people see value in, they will spend that money for it. Even like things like Wikipedia, like if you even make a donation tier and you got a special donation check by your name or a different color, because you also donated money beyond the Twitter Blue thing, right? That would be a thing. But he's got this completely backwards. I know people will be like, oh, you need a lot of people to verify, IDs. No, you don't. Nope. It's machine learning
systems these days. Yeah,
it's automated systems. If you sign up for a crypto account, when I bought an eSIM for Israel, a lot of places when you have to go buy SIMs online, you can't just buy a SIM. Why? Because people burner phones, right? So one of the biggest things is the idea of like buying anonymously a SIM, putting in your phone and doing drug deals or weapons or doing whatever, sex trafficking. So one way you get around that is in order to buy a SIM, a prepaid SIM, you need to verify yourself with an ID. And how you do that is you take a photo of your license or your passport, you upload it, and the system within a couple minutes verifies you and you're like, okay, you're cleared to go. And the same with opening bank accounts, this happens. So you can absolutely automate this through machine learning, which you'd think he would be a big fan of since he does AI.
A story came out just a couple of hours ago. Apparently he has laid off or disbanded a team internally at Twitter who were working on an artificial intelligence system for making the Twitter algorithm more transparent and fair. Apparently he has disbanded or fired that team. So I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre stuff.
I will say I think because this rumor was wild because it started off with the rumor was it was going to be $20 a month,
right?
And I think and I totally believe that that's something that Elon wanted. Like I don't think that was miscommunication. I'm almost certain Elon was in the meeting and he was like, I want this to be $20 a month, and I'm sure the people he's got around him were like, nobody, that's insane, no one will pay that. And I think the reason why he's throwing verification into this as a paid thing is because it adds value to the subscription, which already doesn't have much in it, and already it's a push for $4. And even doubling that to $8, it is really asking for a lot for how little Twitter Blue offers. So I'm guessing what he's thinking is, what can we quickly add to Twitter Blue to make more people want to pay for it? I know verification, because I know lots of people want to be verified on Twitter.
Right.
I'm guessing he's thinking short term rather than long term.
Yeah,
he wants to start making his money back.
And some of that, like I said, makes sense. But it comes down to, what does that check mark now mean? If if it's literally you just gave $8, but you can still be called, jerkface0192.
Verified.
What's the absolute point of that, right? Like, that makes no sense whatsoever, especially because we're trying to fight disinformation.
Exactly.
And one way you do that is, this is why I'm a fan of the verification thing, because it's about accountability. Does it fix everything? Of course not. You could still go online with your full name as Daniel Rubino, and I could say absolutely horrible things and just be like, do your worst, world, that could still happen. But as you can see, there's increasingly, the people who are actually verified have had the most repercussions in the real world, right? If I went out there with my Twitter account verified with my full name on it and just said awful racist things, I probably would not be employed. Right. Why? Because everybody knows who I am. It's my real name. If you're like doofus face 4986 900 and you go say terrible things, there's literally no repercussions for you unless someone could figure out your address and dox you somehow. So it's like, and that's the weirdest thing when all this freedom of speech stuff. Like, the people who have like had the most freedom of speech have been the trolls and the people who are unverified and have dumb screen names. The people who have to have accountability are those who are verified. And that's why I want verification, because you're way less likely, if you're using your real name, to just act like a complete jerk, which is the same reason why people can be terrible online, because there's no consequences usually, versus they don't behave like that in public typically. Although I would say people have been getting worse in public behavior as well. But still, you rarely see someone just going, in a supermarket, starting fights with people and getting into arguments. Imagine just going out to the street with someone just getting into a random argument over politics or Elon Musk, right? It's pretty rare that would happen. I don't know. I feel like he's done this backwards. I don't know if, Twitter is going to get better.
Yeah, I just hope Twitter doesn't collapse and go away, because Twitter is the only sort of social network of its caliber. There's no other social network which is about this micro blogging or always being up to date sort of thing. Like, yes, Facebook, but Facebook's sort of more long form these days. Or actually, it's more for families. Like I have a Facebook account, but I don't use it for tech. It's all family nonsense and boring things like that. I have an Instagram, but again, I only use that with IRL friends. I don't use it for tech. I know you can if you really wanted to, but
yeah,
I'm not going to tweet a picture every time I want to say something funny about a new Windows Insider build.
Right.
Twitter's the only place for that. And if Twitter goes away, then there's no real replacement. And
yeah, there's like things like Mastodon and everything, but they're a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. But the good news too, technically, is it is a market. Anyone can go out there, create a new social network that has the things I'm talking about, and it could attract people. It's difficult, but you need two things to happen, right? And this is why Firefox, or was it Microsoft Edge became dominant versus Netscape, right? You need two things to happen. You need the leading product to get bad, so enough people want to leave, and you need a new product that's good enough that people want to join. If you have that inflection point happen, you can absolutely switch things. Like that's what happened with Gmail. People got tired of like Hotmail and their other accounts and ads and everything. And Gmail's like, we're going to give you, I don't know, it was like a gigabyte of space for free, and, unlimited email. And they made a product that everybody kind of wanted, and they also kind of made it exclusive for a while too. Remember Gmail? You had to get an invite to.
Yeah, it was beta for the longest time.
You would have to get an invite, and it was really like so that could happen again, and that's the beauty of the market and technology. There's no reason why, and they could do it for a lot less than $44 billion. So this stuff could happen, but yeah, you're right. Twitter is the only thing of its kind, which is why it's a little scary to have one. Like, I'm not a fan of giant corporations, and like I understand, sort of the critique of that in terms of their influence on government and politics. I also don't like the idea of a super rich billionaire owning stuff either. Like, I really hate democratic.
Yeah, I really hate that he was just able to barge in and basically steal. Well, it's not stealing because he paid for it, but you know what I mean, right? When I say he stole Twitter from everybody else, it's like he just sort of came in, a hostile takeover is what they call it, right? Like he literally just barged in, was like, all right, this is all mine now. You're all fired. This is all fired. This is changing. That's changing. Without even like, what about the people? What about the customers who use the product? Do we get a say in this? Like, no, apparently it's just whatever he wants because he paid for it now. So that's not fair. Surely someone that is able to put a stop to that, but apparently not.
And he likes having a private company because he can do whatever he wants. Exactly. And but the beauty of a publicly traded company is there are repercussions for a company's actions. If Microsoft goes out and starts, supporting terrorism, people are going to stop buying their products, and you're going to see their stock go down, and and Nadella won't get his $55 million. And so there's repercussions for that, which is the beauty. So a publicly traded massive corporation is still not necessarily the healthiest thing for a flourishing democracy, in my opinion. But at least in theory, there is a democratic way to sort of influence a company versus a privately owned one where, like, that's the joke today. It's like, I saw a tweet by Elon. He was like, responding to someone complaining, and he's like, I heard your complaints, now pay the $8. And like, he can just do that. People find it funny, but there's no accountability. I mean, what will happen, of course, is if people don't pay the $8, the thing is, even with that $8, you're paying to reduce ads, not get rid of ads, which is sort of like, oh, there's that whole thing. So, and I get it. He wants to get rid of ads, which that's an admirable thing too, because yeah, you're the product when something is ad supported, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. I'm not too hopeful about this, but I'm also not, I don't stay up late at night worrying about it either. So we'll see what happens. Well, I guess that brings it full circle since we brought it back to Nadella's pay. Do we have a thing of the week?
No, but we can talk about Moonfall. I guess that's your thing of the week.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was anything else exciting. Well, there was stuff that was exciting that happened internally, but I really can't share that. Yeah, but Moonfall, yeah, or Roland Emmerich, who did Independence Day, and one of my favorites, The Day After Tomorrow. Great film. I'm a huge fan of disaster films. I love them. And so he made this one where I remember the commercials was like literally a moon falls into Earth.
Yeah.
It's getting pushed into it. And so I watched it. It's on HBO Max. And yeah, it's a wild ride, that one.
It's insane. But it's like, it's okay. Because I watched it as well. This is also my thing of the week. It's one of those so bad it's good movies where nothing that's happening in the film makes any sense. So you cannot apply it to the real world at all. But it's just fun. It's awesome. It's not taking itself too seriously because it knows it can't. If it tried to take itself too seriously, then it would be ripped to shreds. More so than I think it already did by reviewers or whoever who watch these films. But as somebody who I just enjoy the spectacle of a movie. This is one of those movies that you have to watch without having your brain switched on. You have to turn your brain off. Just enjoy what it looks like and the idea that in the universe that the movie is based in, all of this is possible. And if you can commit to that, then it's a great film. I had a great time watching it.
I'm normally fine with that. That's why I said The Day After Tomorrow, and I loved Independence Day when it came out too. But I feel like there wasn't enough. Like part of the allure of like The Day After Tomorrow was you got to see like tornadoes in LA and places freezing instantly. Like there's those helicopters that flew into this area was so cold that the helicopter blades froze and they crashed, and then they opened the door to the people freeze instantly. Like it was stuff like that. There's a tidal waves that came in and like flooded New York City. It was just like that classic disaster film stuff, and that was fun. I don't feel like there was enough of that in this movie. There was some of it.
Yeah, there was a few shots of New York getting destroyed by a tidal wave or something.
Right. But it wasn't a lot. And then, them going to the moon and all this. The story, like the explanation for everything, it was unique. Fun fact: Roland Emmerich had ideas for sequels, and he was going to shoot 2 and 3 back to back.
Like Matrix did?
Yeah, like he had this big idea, and it's like I love the thinking big,
Yeah.
Of course, it didn't do very well at the box office.
I would have liked to see that.
Yeah, well, apparently the ideas in that one were even more crazy than this one. I mean, I'm a fan of dumb movies. Don't get me wrong. That's why I watch Mystery Science Theater 3000 and Riff Tracks. Like I love watching sometimes bad movies and goofy stuff that happens. But yeah, this one I was just a little I don't know. I wasn't as impressed by his typical stuff, but that's me. So
fair enough. I thought it was great.
That's fine. As long as you enjoyed it and you didn't pay for anything. I did see Nope finally, actually.
I've not seen it. Yeah.
That was good. Yeah, you can rent it now for $5.99. That was fun. It's not perfect. It's not amazing, but like the way they subvert certain expectations of of what the thing is, the phenomena, is really kind of like a funny twist. And the acting is great in it. And the cast, I really enjoyed the cast a lot. And the direction is very good, of course. And there's just like a lot of great visuals. It's a movie that you'll never forget. That's for sure. But it's definitely worth checking out.
There's one movie I want to see. I've not seen it yet. I've heard good things though. Bullet Train with.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. See, that's another one. Like I'm totally fine watching stuff like that.
That looks good.
Yeah, it's based on I believe manga. A comic that was in Japan and turned into a movie and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I love Brad Pitt. I'm a big fan of his. I'll kind of watch anything with him in it. So. Well, maybe we'll watch that and return next week. But that does it. This isn't the movie podcast, so we're going to wrap up now. We, of course, will do Q&A with the audience. for a little while. You could also, you can follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino. Follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN if you want to ask us questions there. We do record live every Friday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel, so you're free to join the chat and the live video there, or you can go watch our old podcast there as well. As always, though, we thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Wonderful. So yes, if you have any questions, now is the time to ask them. We'll hang around for a few minutes and do our best to provide you with some answers. Catherine Johnson just commenting on my comment about how it's not fair that Elon could just buy Twitter. I think that somehow it is unfair that Elon bought Twitter and is doing as he pleases with it. I ask this. I want to say in how you use your home, your car, etc. Well, I think the difference is that buying a house, it isn't a communal space. It's like a personal, nobody else is using that house if you're buying the house. Maybe someone lives there currently and is moving out, but it's not like people come and go and whatever they please. It's like once you buy it, it's yours. Nobody else is using that. Whereas Twitter was like a big public space. It's like, for example, you live in a city and someone just decides to buy the city and knock all the houses down. That's more the analogy. And in which case, I think you'd be quite upset. You've made your bed here. This is where you live. And some guys just come along or whoever and decided to buy the whole place and knock all the streets down and all the buildings and redesign the whole city. You'd be annoyed. I know I'd be annoyed.
Yeah, true. Is Volterra a thing worth buying? I mean, you can answer that one, but Zach.
Sorry.
Volterra, is it a thing worth buying?
If you're a developer, yes. If you're a developer looking to compile your app for Windows and ARM, yes. If you're just planning to use it as a sort of general purpose PC, I think you'd probably be better off buying a Surface Pro and then connecting it to an external monitor. Only because the Surface Pro 9 5G is a real product with consumer sort of focus and warranties and all that stuff. It's going to be supported better than the ARM developer kit because it's a developer kit. I think there's a sort of unofficial, unspoken rule that if you run into issues with it, you're kind of expected to either deal with it or fix it yourself because you're a dev and you can probably do that. Whereas you're not going to be expected to do that if you're running a Surface Pro. If there's an issue with it or whatever, you can reach out to Microsoft, or if there's a bug that is probably going to get fixed at some point. There's no guarantees of that on Volterra. But so far, I mean, I've been using it as a sort of general purpose PC, and so far it's been okay. Minus, as I keep mentioning, the issues with my monitors and color contrast. That may be a specific thing to me. I don't know. A few people have tried with HDR monitors and they haven't said there's any issues. I don't know if that's because they don't know what they're looking for, or if there really are no issues with other people. But on I've tried 3 different displays now with HDR capabilities, and they all output the same issues. So who knows?
Interesting. Recall though that when one company, Parler, or Parlay, it was supposed to be called originally, tried to compete with Twitter, the rest of the tech world teamed up over political, not business reasons to block them. AWS, app stores, etc., all did that. Nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. It was business reasons. The business reasons is if you run an app store and there's an app in there that you don't agree with or violates your terms of service, you do not have to have that app in the store. So what was the issue with Parler? Well, they did the thing that people wanted. Free speech, no regulation, no moderation. And then it became quickly overrun, of course, with racists and Nazis and everything. And it was just a vile place. And I think there might have been some doxing going on and everything and stuff like that. And these companies said, and I know it was specifically Apple and Google said, moderate your platform and we'll let you back on. Yeah. And that's what happened. And I'm pretty sure you can still go down Parler, but they wanted the apps to be moderated, and they wanted that because they don't want to be associated. Like, it's the same reason, like if you make an app with, that's like hate speech or Nazis or something like that, and you submit it to the App Store, like they could be like, no, we don't want to be associated with this. No, you're not doing it. Now, you could say, it just happens that a very conservative driven app just happened to attract a lot of racist people. It wasn't because they were conservative. There are conservative apps out there. I guarantee it. So it wasn't political reasons. It was business reasons. And they simply said, fix this. We'll let you back on. End of the story. So I don't have, again, private companies, they can do this. They control the terms of service. So I don't know what, unless you're a communist, right? I'm going to throw that argument back in people's face. This is how the free market works and what private enterprise does.
It always comes down to this whole freedom of speech thing. People not realizing that, yeah, the idea of freedom of speech makes total sense, but freedom of hate speech is not. No, that's the difference. It's not freedom of hate speech. You can say whatever you want as long as you're not being horrible or hateful to other people of any sort of differences from you, or even people who you are similar to you. Just don't be horrible to other people, and you can say what you like.
You can, free speech, at least in the United States, you can go in the streets, you can go wherever you want, say whatever you want. What you can't do is go use a private platform that someone else built with their money, go on there and do whatever you want. It's the same thing. Like, I can't walk into someone's house and just be like, start yelling things and being like, freedom of speech. And then I ask you to leave and you're like, no, freedom of speech. I have a right to be here. No, you don't. It's my house. Get out. It's the same principle. I don't understand why people find this complicated. You don't have a right to Twitter. You don't have a right to have an account on Twitter. And Twitter doesn't have, there's no law saying Twitter has to allow you on. Freedom of speech is about the government preventing you from saying something. Yeah. Not private companies. So
the other thing is accountability. If you do choose to say hateful things to people,
right,
you can be held accountable for that. And that in real life, that may result in a punch in the face. Who knows? It's like that's what accountability is. And on social networks, it results in moderation and banning to stop that stuff on the platform. That's the virtual equivalent of being punched in the face and told to go away.
And the reason is people want to use a platform that's enjoyable. You don't want to go on and then have people saying vile things and threatening you with violence. And it, like, why would anyone want to use that platform? Because, well, yeah, it sucks. And I'm always being threatened. People call me terrible things. And, you know, there's lots of profanity and there's nudity and hardcore violence. But hey, freedom of speech. Like, by the way, I also pay $8 a month for this experience, which I'm actually not enjoying. Like, no, you build a product that you like, and then people will pay for it. And part of that is moderation. And if you don't like it, go build your own platform and just hope that you don't have, you know, terrible people come on. And this goes on both sides. If I built a left-wing app tomorrow, I guarantee you there would be some terrible people on there too. The difference is I would be, you know, I'd be like, here are the rules. You can't threaten people. You can't post, you know, this type of content. You can't post hate and racist things. You can't call for the death of people. And those would be the rules. And I would have those rules. And I'd be like, that's my, we have them at Windows Central with the forums and before with the comment system. You know, when you agreed to post on Windows Central in the comments, you signed a thing that said, I agree to these rules. And one of those rules is, I can do whatever I want to your account. If I don't like you, I can just boot you. I don't have to explain myself. It's our system. You don't have a right to comment on articles. It's a privilege. So, of course, you don't even have that right now. So, Fisher says, the thing that scares me more than anything about the current state of the world is how many people need this free speech thing explained to them. Well said, Dan and Zach. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think it's just because I call it sloganeering. It's the same reason I hate people that slap complicated political positions as a bumper sticker on their car. The world's more complicated than that. And it's okay to have discussions on stuff. But yeah, freedom of speech is like, it's really not about that. It's about it's about building, like I said, a product that people enjoy using. And Twitter already as is, with its moderation, people would always call it this dumpster fire of a website, right? Like people actually kind of hate Twitter, but as Zach said, there's nothing else out there like it, so we use it. But people want it to be better. So yeah,
so I do wish people would exercise their right to freedom of no speech, because I don't want to hear from any of you.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, in that, you know, I mean, they're joking, but I think it's a critical thing. It's why if you follow my Twitter account, I don't post every little detail of my
Right.
life and what I'm doing at the moment. People have gotten way too comfortable with oversharing.
Yes.
And in relation to that, having an opinion about every single thing. You don't need to have an opinion of every single thing. Or your opinion just, like a lot of my things are like, well, that's not for me. You know, if I watched a movie like Moonfall, I didn't say I hated it. I made a little joke about it, but like, I wasn't like when Zach's like, I enjoyed it. I didn't go after him like, how dare you enjoy this movie? What kind of idiot are you? I mean, like, shrug. All right, it wasn't for me, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of the world. It's just like, this thing is not for me. Maybe someone else finds enjoyment in it. Like, what's the problem with that? But everybody has to fight over everything and have these hot takes, opinions on movies and celebrities and politicians. It's just like, oh my God, just back off. Just take a breather.
Yeah. All right, let's answer some Microsoft related questions.
Yes.
Do you think they will keep the Surface Pro 9 form factor for a while? I do. I think,
yes,
you know, the last few generations have changed things on the hardware, and that's rarely a thing for Surface. So I think they've probably settled now, and this is the sort of design they're going to go with the port sort of positioning and whatnot for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, unless they can do, yeah, I mean, the actual form factor, there's no, you know, maybe the hinge gets improved or something like that, but, you know, the actual design, no, I don't. You're just going to see the continued improvement of the technologies, and I think that's fine. I've said the Surface Pro 8's design was perfect, and I think the Pro 9's is as well. So I don't think they need to change it up. You know, yeah, maybe the bezels could be thinner, but not really, because you still got to hold it. And they need the top bezel for all the sensors, and then you need the bottom bezel for the keyboard. So it's like you can't, if you see how it works, you can't really make those bezels thinner. So.
Go on.
But Michael says, yeah, there were people that were legitimately mad that Shearer had a smaller chest than in the past. Yeah, people who comment on that stuff is just like, bruh. Yeah. You're getting worked up over a design of like a cartoon character or a video game character. It's like, wow, you need to touch some grass.
What do you think the next form factor for Microsoft will offer with ARM? Probably the Surface Go. I think that's probably the next one. If they are adding ARM to new product lines in the Surface line, I think the Surface Go is probably the next on the list. It makes the most sense, right? It's the kind of the device we've all been waiting for to get ARM. So yeah, I think Surface Go is probably the next one.
How would we rank the 3 Microsoft CEOs and why? I mean, it's a kind of a tough one. I think Nadella is easily number 1. I get Bill Gates.
For boring reasons.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's hard to ignore Gates because he started it. Sure. So clearly.
But he also, yeah, well, I'll say he was also the reason why the company was also almost split up because of the whole, you know, anti-competitive thing. And he almost got Microsoft split up into different companies because everybody was upset that Microsoft was this massive monopoly, and they were like, "You're too powerful. You've got to be different companies." And so that was almost on his watch. And then Steve Ballmer came.
And I was going to say he took responsibility also, like Ballmer, for not seeing mobile and the phone as the next generation of important technologies and investing heavily in that. So
I will say I enjoyed Ballmer the most. When Ballmer was CEO, I thought Microsoft was the most exciting it has been. Only because he was crazy and he just wanted to try everything, and a lot of those, you know, a lot of things these days that would never see the light of day became products under him because he just was so passionate and just thought everything that Microsoft would do would just be successful. And there's advantages and disadvantages to that, you know, things like the Zune and Windows 8 and maybe Windows Phone as a whole, really. All of that didn't work well, but those sort of things just would not happen under Nadella. Nadella would not greenlight I don't know, whatever's current these days that can compare to a Zune or a phone or something. Like a wearable, I guess. You know, actually he killed the wearable. So there you are, perfect example. So
I think they all have their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. You know. Satch's Nadella, I think CEO, the biggest thing from a business perspective.
Yeah.
Ballmer was the best CEO from a fan perspective.
Yeah.
Is my opinion on it anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty fair. Yeah, Nadella's pretty boring, and you know, but he's good at what he does. Yeah. Fisher says also, I feel like we wouldn't be having these problems were it not for the fact that a large portion of the population seems to have forgotten or never known how to identify credible facts. Yeah, that's a big thing. I don't think schools teach us enough. which is the first thing I do when I hear something outlandish is not to go repeat it. I actually try to read something that says the opposite of it. Like, first of all, like if someone disagrees with it or if there's a counter opinion on it, because usually what you find is like the truth somewhere in between. But that's how you figure it out. You don't just hear this thing, repeat it, be like, oh, that's true because this person said it. No, you go to find someone else goes, well, actually, here's the real story. And maybe they're being hyperbolic too, but somewhere you can figure it out. And you always need to, it's like I did this, and this is what you learn in science. Like I used to study in syntax, linguistic theory, Chomsky, and after Noam Chomsky. He was the big driver of that theory. He's not the only, his generative syntax model wasn't the only one out there. There were other ones. HPSG was a big one that was done like on the West Coast. I would go and read their critiques of the thing I was doing so I could understand why were these people having a different theory about how syntax should be done. And were they wrong? Maybe, but I wanted to know why they thought those things. And that's what people should be doing is if you're on the left, you should be going and reading what right-wing people say so you understand them. And if you're on the right, you should be spending your time on like Huffington Post and reading the comments and trying to understand those positions. And that's where you start to come into the middle. But yeah, they don't teach any of that in school, unfortunately.
Right, a couple more questions, then it is time to head off.
Favorite new Surface laptop color? I mean, especially for me, it's more about the Pro 9. I love the blue on the Pro 9. I think the blue on the laptop is nice too. The green on the laptop is fine. It's nice. I don't feel super strongly about it because it's not like this like crazy overt green. It's almost like a little bit more difficult to notice, but it's a nice modest shade of green. But I think blue looks great personally, but the green, I don't know, they both look awesome. If you ever see the Surface Pro 9 in blue and green, they're both really, really kind of cool looking. Laptop I don't find as, I don't know, for some reason not as jarring. Zach, do you have a favorite color?
It's not new, but the burgundy Surface laptop will be my all-time favorite color.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true too. And yeah, other than that, I mean, ultimately, I like platinum. I like platinum.
With Joe Belfiore officially retiring from Microsoft after 32 years, do you have any fond memories of him? I have a couple.
No.
Yeah, I have a couple. One, I wasn't there at the event, but when they announced Cortana for Windows Desktop, they pulled up my article on stage and referenced it because I leaked it for everybody else, and they were like, "Oh, this secret got out" or something like that. And he does a brief conversation with Cortana about my article, and my name's in the article and stuff. That was an interesting moment. And then the other time, I met him once in 2017, I think it was 2018 at Build, and I got a selfie with him and Michael Gillett. So
nice. Yeah, I mean, I've met him quite a few times. I've actually interviewed him. There's a video of him on YouTube with me. Yeah, he's a super nice dude, super enthusiastic. Yeah, I don't know if anyone ever said anything bad about him. Like, he was generally just kind of loved about anyone. I'm sure there's someone out there that like worked with him or that has bad things, but he was pretty well loved by everyone, and he's just a really happy person. Like, I don't know, he was pretty great. But yeah, long time. I read most of Chomsky's books, see his Netflix doc. It's incredible. Yep. That's how I got into it. That's actually how I got into linguistics, was I was reading his political stuff when I was 14 and 15. And then I saw he was professor of linguistics. I'm like, wait, what? And then I started getting into linguistics and did that after my degree in political science. Duo Post 12L, will we ever see separate pull-down shades for quick actions and notifications? So this was shown off with the default 12L experience. No, I don't think that will happen. I'm not sure it necessarily makes sense. And I know Shane Craig, Scary Flitter, I believe, was saying this about how, because if you're pulling down the shade, you're now blocking content on your other screen. You know what I'm saying? So like, kind of the beauty right now of the Duo is you could be like an Edge on one screen and Mail on the other. And if you pull down the shade on one side, you can check a notification while still viewing the other thing. Whereas if you pull down the shade on both, it's going to block that. I'm not really sure it gets you. Yeah, you'll see more content. But I'm not sure. A lot of that content you're going to see is stuff you're not normally going to access, which is kind of why the notification tray is built the way it is. It's the things you're most likely to use at that moment are right there within touch. And then if you want more, you got to dig more into the menu. All they would be doing is showing that stuff all the time, even though the chances of you probably going to use it are a lot more slim. Like, I don't know about you, I rarely expand the notification, like the tools, to control the phone. I rarely expand that to get those other features, but maybe some can. But I don't expect Microsoft to ever to do that now. Have they restocked Surface Duo 2s? I don't believe so, not yet. I haven't checked, but last week they didn't.
They were in stock in the UK store a few weeks back. That when new stock came in, and then I think they're all out of stock already. So,
let's see. I'm checking the Microsoft site. Nope.
Dead. Has Android 12L been solid for you? My Duo has developed some issues, one of which text being stuck on sending. I've not seen that issue. I will say I have noticed some drop frames. It does seem to be that it drops frames a little bit more now, and I think that's just because, you know, all the blurred effects and stuff are a little bit more taxing on the GPU. But other than that, it's been perfectly fine for me. I've not had any issues.
I did have the issue where I hung up a call and like it still said like Wi-Fi calling. Like
yeah, I saw people complain. I've not had that. I did a call earlier and it was totally fine. Maybe it's a US carrier thing.
Other than that, I really haven't had too much. But yeah, there's some bugs, which I expect, and I fully expect probably next month, the month after, Microsoft will have a bug patch to fix a lot of these little things. They're following the forums. Did Microsoft respond about the dynamic refresh on the Pro 8? They have not. I should follow back up on that. I'll try to do so. Zach, was that restock after the 12L update?
No, it was before.
Yeah. Does Xbox need games for TV like console and PC? No, I don't think so. Dan, are you still using your Windows phone? Absolutely not. Are they still working? Yeah, they work. I mean, if I plug them in, the batteries are dead.
You can make a call and send a text on them if you needed to.
Yeah, no, I absolutely do not use them. I have Surface Duo 2, an iPhone 13 mini, and the new Pixel 7. And they're all great phones. I like all three of these tremendously. Did we answer Fisher's? One mobile question before you go. Any new fun aspects or apps that you've discovered on Duo 2 since 12L? Not necessarily new. I will say some of Google's inbox apps perform better. Like Gmail is awesome now on the Duo 2. It worked before, but there was this major bug where, like, what I mean is you could have the inbox on one side and then the open email on the other, just like the Outlook app does that now with Gmail. The problem was before 12L, you would read that email on the right side and then you hit respond, and then it would give you a blank new email to write instead of filling it in with the information like a normal email client would. With 12L, now it works perfectly. So when you respond, it gives you the window and you can respond. So I use Gmail for work, and I actually really like the Gmail app. And so that works more natively. The Messages app, the SMS app, is also works dual screen. But for some reason, the alignment is a little off. So the names on the right side will kind of go where the curve of the display is, and it cuts off a little bit. It's just slight. It's just a couple pixels off. It doesn't really bother me. You can still read the person's name, but that also wasn't working perfectly before 12L. Like you would get like a message and you would open it, for the notification, it would open full screen, but as a single page. Now it doesn't do that. So basically, Google's clearly optimizing our apps for dual screen foldables, and those now work better on 12L. I don't think I've really found any other apps that have been optimized for it yet. I don't know, Zach, have you found anything?
Sorry, what was the question? I was writing a message.
Fisher asks, any new fun aspects or apps that you've discovered with Duo 2 since 12L?
Nothing specifically designed for it. Like the Android 12L stuff, a lot of Google's apps now sort of support spanning.
That's what I was just talking about.
There you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't listening.
It's fine. I know for some people, Bluetooth got better. I didn't really have any issues before, but so I guess that's good. But no, I haven't really had any more use cases or any new apps or anything that really changed anything.
Accidentally closed the chat.
I'd like Google Maps to be more optimized. Yeah, Google Maps is not real. Google Maps is optimized like on the Fold 4 if you rotate it. There is like a tablet mode, what I'm saying is for Google Maps, but they haven't made it so it worked on like the Fold normally and on the Duo 2, which you would expect. So I don't know what the plans are there for that. And I think Duo, the Google Duo app, is also now optimized and works well with 12L, but I have never really used that app.
All right.
My Bluetooth stayed bad. Yeah. I think some of it comes out to hardware.
Time to head off, I think. It's getting late here. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back next Friday, I think, usually. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you the next time. Goodbye.